Hello traders and tradettes, this is 4i Biped with a new video today. This is going to be a beginner level video, though some advanced user may find some of the features near the end of the video useful. Might have been something you were aware of but never considered before. But for the most part, this is for the new guy. And we're going to be talking about the fixed range volume profile tool and its configuration options. It's not going to be about trading with it. It's just going to be about understanding how to use the options and configure it to help us trade, whatever your trading style may be. And with using any tool, we first have to find that tool. And this tool is going to be on the left side over here. And it's going to be an area called prediction and measurement tools. If you click that, typically at the bottom, or at least as of this recording time, you will find the fixed range volume profile tool. If you're going to be using this tool frequently, which I imagine you will, I recommend clicking, adding it to your favorites, and let's begin. First, just very briefly, to understand what the volume profile tool does, is your normal volume down here measures the volume in this candle. In this point of time, we've had 68 million transactions, buys and sells. Since this is what would be a green candle, obviously buyers appear to have won out. But what the fixed range volume profile tool does, and we'll put it here on the chart, is it divides this range up into price areas. And it gives you the buys and sells in that price area. So from here to here, it shows you how much buys and sells was transacted in that price range. And then you get to compare other price levels, how much volume was transacted. And we'll see in this price range, we had more than double the volume of transactions than we did in this price range. With trading, this is very valuable information, but once again, I'm not going to go over that. That's for another video. In this video, what we're going to do is look at the options, how to configure this to better meet our trading needs. So if you select it, right click and go to settings, we bring up these options. And this is the default, how TradingView has fixed range volume profile tool set up by default. And our first option is going to be rows layout. And most people do not touch this, but there is a reason potentially to. And as far as ticks per row, and we'll get to that in a minute. The first, I'm going to go over number of rows. Whenever you pull your fixed range tool here, you're going to have, it's going to encompass this entire area, and you're going to have what's going to be the low and the high. And your row size is going to tell you how many candles, how many rows you want to put in this price range. And in this case, we had 24 rows. And no matter how big the price range is that we draw this tool, it will only put 24 rows. If you are doing a small price range for whatever the asset is, it's going to be relative to the asset. But whatever that price range is, if it's small for that particular asset, you may want to use a smaller row size than had you pulled the tool on a larger price range. And the reason for this is if you have if you have this price range where the price range is kind of small, and I set these rows to a higher number, what's going to happen is you're going to get more of this noise in here, which it may be fine, once again, depending on what you're looking for. But you do run risk where you might have had this one big player or multiple people at a very particular specific price made a very large purchase, and you would have this spike, and this spike might be assigned your point of control. While the average volume in that area would have been extremely low, that one big purchase caused this spike, and now our point of control is showing there, and that may be considered inaccurate by most. So take that in consideration. If you're doing a smaller price range, you may want to have a different row size than if you were doing a larger price range. If you were doing an extremely large price range, going back months, weeks, or whatever the case may be, you may want a little extra detail by using those higher row counts. Okay. Now you got to ask yourself, well, what is the ticks per row? And this is going to be similar to a TPO chart. And if you want to emulate the values that you are getting from your TPO chart, because a lot of TPO charts will show volume base, like previous day, value areas, and point of control. If you want your fixed range, especially if you're doing daily profiles, in this case that may not be the case, but you may be combining multiple days, whatever the case may be. If you want to emulate your TPO chart values when it puts out a volume-based value, set your row size, which in this case will end up being ticks per row, to match your settings in whichever program you're using, whether it be Sierra charts, Exo charts, and so forth. Now, here, I'm going to set this back to standard numbers for now. Volume, there's one section here I'm going to get to a lot of people don't consider that may be helpful. But let's start at the top. Up, down is plain and simple. The blue, going by the default settings, the blue is going to be your buys, and the sells are going to be here on the right. Once again, this is default colors, which is in yellow. That may, you're going to hear me say this often, this may or may not be useful to you. You may want to show totals, which doesn't distinguish between buys and sells and just gives you the total amount, so you can still see your nodes. But you may say, I want to use delta, and delta gives you an idea who was there more buys or more sells in this price area. And we'll use more traditional colors to better highlight this. So in this range, we had a lot of buyers that were mainly winning here. We had some sales winning here, sales winning there, buys, and so forth. You may be able to extrapolate potential trap traders and stuff like that. There's far better tools for this. We're not going to get into that, but just so you know, it's an interesting little feature. It may or may not be useful to someone, especially if you may not be able to afford some of those other tools. So this at least gives you some extra information to go on, or helps you quickly see something without having to reference something else. But Up to you whether or not that's useful. Value area volume. As you see, we have the shaded area here. The color more saturated area is going to be your volume area. And this number depends on your trading style. Some people like 68, some people like 70. Probably a little bit more partial for a good 69. But that all depends on your trading style. A new feature added to TradingView somewhat recently, I don't know how many months ago, is Extend Right. And what Extend Right does for you is there are going to be cases where you want to draw your fixed volume profile tool. You're going to want to highlight a specific range, and that's a static range to you. That range for you isn't going to change. You just want to know what's happened in this one range. But there's going to be times where price is ranging. I don't know why it took me so long to come up with that. Where you have price ranging here, and that range is bound to continue. It's going to continue forever, how long it's going to continue. And you don't want to have to keep up with that. You want the tool, you have other things you're having to plot and track, and you don't want to have to keep dragging this to encompass new price action. And that's what Extend Right does. So for example, had we selected this range by default and price continues, we can allow it to keep up for us. And you can uncheck that and it'll go back to where you originally last pulled it to. It can be handy. Once again, up to you on how you want to use it. Now we're going to go to style. Volume profile. This is your volume profile. All these buys and sells at the different price levels is what's considered your volume profile. And our first, we can enable it or disable it. We may just only want to see things like our point of control. We can slap our value area high and value area low here. You may say, hey, I only want to see this. Volume profile is in my way. I don't need to see it right now, or once again, whatever your trading style may be. So you can just quickly hide it instead of going in here and setting all the transparencies at 0. In these options, you can just unhide the whole thing, or hide or unhide the whole thing. Values, what values does, let's change this to a lower, just make this easier to show, is you'll see now we're able to see the buys and sells at this row, which is this price range between here and here. We had 194 million buys, and we had 166 million sells in this price range. I haven't really seen anyone use that, but I'm sure someone's finding some value in it. Now the next thing, we'll crank this back up to a higher row size to highlight this next point, where width can come in handy. You may not want this covering a large area, but you still want to kind of get an idea where your different volume nodes are. So you may just want it to only take up a small percentage of the chart. And as you see, this shrunk. The larger this number is, the more percentage of this area you have selected it will take up. Sometimes, depending on how volume is behaving, our volume nodes may not be as easily distinguished from each other. So using a higher number here will exaggerate these nodes, which may help if you're someone who are marking them on your map, your chart. You may find that having this as a higher number helps you find and mark these better to be able to distinguish them from each other. Our next area is placement. This is very basic. You want it on the right, you want it on the left. I think most use left, but that is up to you. You can be the unique guy. Put it where you want. It is your option. So you have, this is nothing but changing the colors. The first two have to do with the areas outside your value area. And the two here are the areas inside. Once again, this is just all a visual thing for you. You may say, hey, I want to be fancy and hide that and make it look cool. Whatever your case, do what you want. Value area high, value area low. These are just enable and disable them. Once again, this isn't about telling you how to use these and exactly what they are. That's another video. This is just to go over the various configuration settings. And these are disabled by default. I don't know why. It's up to you whether or not you turn them on. Pointer controls enabled by default. Then the next two, well, really the last one, you may find more value in, though there may be some in the developing pointer control. And what this is, which you really can't see as well here, there may be better examples of it, but I'm not going to hunt for them right now. This shows you how the pointer control, see, like when this was originally only encompassing this range, our pointer control was down to here. And then as price moved on, the pointer control jumped up. It has been pretty stable. Most of the volume has been in this area. You may, once again, it's up to you. You may find some value in that. But the one that may be more useful is developing value area. A lot of people will use the value area high and low, and they'll reference it, but this isn't where value area low was when this price action was in this area. It's going to be in it most, well, it might have been, but it's also may have been in a completely different area, and we can confirm that by putting here. It was actually pretty close. But as you see here, value area actually pretty low. So this helps you from misjudging what you're seeing here about the value area high. I'm trying to be overly brief here. I'm not trying to go over this. This is more technical stuff, and this isn't what the video is about. But be aware that some may find value. I noticed even some more skilled, more knowledgeable traders haven't really considered this, and some may find some value in the developing VAR. And lastly, whenever you drag your fixed range volume profile tool, you can have it kind of give you an idea what area that tool is calculating from, or you can go down here and simply hide it. It's up to you. Anyway, I believe we have covered all the important features here. The only other thing I can think of is templates. You can choose to apply defaults, take it back to how it originally was, or you can make different profiles. You may make one that has a lower row size and a higher row size, and once you have it configured the way you want, you can save it and give it a name and quickly be able to switch between those different settings. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Until next time, see ya.